This is the City Council workshop for October 1, 2025. City Clerk, would you do the roll call, please?
Councilmember Sell.
Here.
Councilmember Papalardo.
Here.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Here.
Mayor Chazet.
Here.
Vice Mayor Butlin.
Here. Okay, we have a presentation related to a portion of Volume 2 of the City of DeBerry's 2045 Comprehensive Plan. As a reminder, we are working through this document methodically to extend its coverage through year 2045 from its existing form, which is about 5 years earlier in termination. Mr. Babb?
Thank you very much. Stephen Babb, Growth Management Director for the record. This is our 8th workshop, and today we will, as the Mayor mentioned, we will focus on Volume 2, which are our goals, objectives, and policies. Tonight we're going to handle 2 elements which had a lot of outside coordination. First of all, the natural resources element was thoroughly gone over through our contracted RES environmental consultant who's worked for the city for years. And our intergovernmental coordination element has had a lot of work from our city attorney's office. So we did get a lot of buy-in from them and their knowledge of their area of expertise. By no means, I'm an environmental expert. We rely on our outside agencies. So the first we'll cover is the natural resource element. Let me cut up. The management of natural resource elements provides for the conservation, use, and protection of our natural resources in our area. This includes everything, including air, water recharge areas, wetlands, water wells, soils, floodplains, rivers, forests, minerals, energy conservation, and other resources. As the city of DeBerry is virtually flanked by water on like half of its side, and water element is very important to the city, and it's very, very important to the state too, because it is a required element for every city to have this in their comprehensive plan. Since the adoption of our last evaluation and appraisal report, as many know, there have been a lot of environmental changes and legislative changes by the state of Florida. So staff went through and we did update the policies, which you have in more detailed written form, that were amended really to comply with state law. We didn't create new policies, but we amended our existing policies so the verbiage and wordage would be consistent with our law and compliant with subordinate state agencies. Several new policies on management of water resources have been drafted, in addition to what we modified, which include the implementation of water emergency conservation measures, coordination with certain agencies on water quality and quantity, enforcement of floodplain protection measures, which is a very important trend, especially in Volusia County in Florida, programs for minimizing flood damage, and participation in Volusia County's floodplain management plan. The management of natural resource elements now is addressing hazardous waste, which we are participating in Volusia County's overarching hazardous waste management program. We are holding at least one household hazardous waste collection event in the city per year, which has been ongoing, but we're putting that as a policy. Providing educational materials for the proper disposal of household hazardous waste materials, which we have been doing, but we're putting that in as an established policy for the city. There have been many changes in air quality and air quality management and technologies. So we've cleaned up and adjusted our policies to address air quality, including monitoring concepts, pursuing a Florida Green Local Government designation, designating, constructing, operating city facilities to minimize environmental impacts, appointing and maintaining a sustainable green team within existing city staff, providing educational activities to the general population, encouraging support of green building rating systems, and developing standards for placement of photovoltaic panels. Also, we've extended beyond water and air into our soil. Listed on the screen are some soil policies which are consistent with new Florida legislation and emerging technologies. We're going to start with the site plan review process, which requires topographical and soil conditions be considered in all development proposals. Dredge and fill within lakes would be prohibited, except for elevated docks and walkways. Many of these things we're already doing in the city, but we're codifying it into the comprehensive plan. Require appropriate measures to be taken during land clearing and development. And a lot of things reflect already things like St. John water management imposes. Requiring adequate measures to be taken to ensure soil erosion is avoided, requiring all mining and resourcing. We don't have mining now, but who knows in the future, we're trying to prevent that. And prohibit of gas, oil exploration or production that utilizes high pressure well stimulation. Very hazardous thing to do in Florida is a fracking type thing. All those things considered do reflect and match what has been legislated over the last 5 years or since the last year amendment. The intergovernmental coordination element, like I said, Fishback had a good review of this. Feels very confident in its form. The intergovernmental coordination element provides for relationships with other government entities and for coordination of comprehensive plans and the plans of those said agencies. This element, again, is one of the required elements that we need in our comprehensive plan according to the Florida Statute 163. Our element has been amended to reflect the city's current active relationships with other governments. It has undergone review, as I stated, by the city's attorney's office to ensure this element is consistent with state law and is beneficial and protects the city's interest. We see that the most significant changes address coordination and identifying and planning of the siting facilities within county-wide significance, including locally unwanted land uses, dispute resolution processes, and coordination with applicable agencies regarding development such as the water supply facilities work plan, which Volusia County has. Not much cleanup, but more modernizing the goals, objectives, and policies to make sure they're consistent. Our next workshop is tentatively scheduled 2 weeks from today on the 15th of October. And we'll continue with Volume 2, which are goals, objectives, and policies. And the two things we'll cover are a little more in depth. Will be public facilities infrastructure and the capital improvements element of the comprehensive plan, both which would contain more details and data to establish our goals. So that is where we are. That's where staff has been with the chapters. Apologizing for the last 2 sessions not having a meeting, but we wanted to make sure we coordinated things thoroughly, especially with our environmental consultant, because we're aware and very sensitive to the environment as staff, but we don't have the expertise to drill down, especially in many of the recent legislative changes in the last probably 3 to 5 years that have occurred at the state level. So that is my presentation. Gladly entertain any comment, input, or questions.
City Clerk, do we have any public participation?
No, ma'am, we do not.
Councilmember Sell?
I don't have any comments.
Councilmember Papalardo?
No comments.
Councilmember Stevenson?
Thank you for taking the time to consult with experts.
I don't know if your mic's on.
Yeah.
I was just saying, thank you for taking the time to consult with experts on the scientific things. I also appreciate you giving us both the clean and the modified version
Yes.
to read through. So thank you. No other questions.
Right, thank you.
Vice Mayor Butlin?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick question, Mr. Bapp. Solar energy, where would that fit into any of our comprehensive plan if we were to do that later on?
If we're going to add solar energy, well, it could fall under probably a couple different chapters.
Okay.
I would think it would, not really like the future land use, but it would fall under, where there would be some things in intergovernmental coordination. There would be some things in the environmental. Would there be any others? I'm not sure. I think those two things kind of pop out at me.
I just looked at natural
Or
resources.
for solar energy
Right.
policies would.
Okay.
There are a lot of state and federal programs and policies already
In place.
that are pretty strong, especially in Florida, but we could add those to several different chapters.
Okay.
Depends what our goals are and what we're trying to achieve. If that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yep. Thank you. That's it, Mayor.
Yep.
Okay. Following up on the Vice Mayor's question, you did have on your screen on one of them that we were adding, I thought, standards for photovoltaic, that's solar, right? So we are adding standards, there it is, developing standards for the placement of photovoltaic panels. I'm wondering what that might entail. Is it something like we could decide as a city that you may not have them where they're visible from the street? I'm not sure that that will work for properties that have only one south or southeast facing roof line, that kind of thing. So I'm sure that you would bring the standards to us after they were developed, but I am wondering a little bit about our developing standards for placement, which is what that says.
So what the federal and state laws, they do prohibit a city or a county from banning panels
Correct,
on a roof.
correct.
Now, what it does state is that municipalities can direct the placement.
Correct, and so I'm just saying,
Right.
I would think we'd need to think through that. We have a lot of solar rooftop installations already throughout the city. And I would think personally that we would have to have a really strong backing logic for saying we now want to impose placement standards, and would have to consider what the state of the city is currently with the installations. I personally have not heard much kickback over how people in the end place their solar panels, which is largely driven by how are they going to generate the most energy.
Correct.
So that's just my comment there. Also, earlier in the presentation, you said something about emergency water conservation. Now, our water is supplied by the county. Would this be a flow-through of a county mandate, or is this something more detailed than that? Say, we're concerned about the number of wells and the level of groundwater. What does that mean, emergency water conservation?
No, it's reflective of the Volusia County water management policies,
Okay.
which
so-
as they are potable water and sewer
Right,
provider, we
right.
reflect and make sure our policies are consistent
Right,
with that.
but that we do have a good number of our residents who provide their water from wells, and I was wondering if that thought of putting that in there had to do with anything we would say to people who are on wells, and you're thinking probably not, it would be a pass-through of
Correct.
Volusia County utilities. I think it's great that we're putting in having one hazardous material collection event per year. I do know that to date, we have been completely dependent on the county for hosting this. We don't have a landfill, the county does, et cetera, and I seem to recall that there was a year when we didn't have one, and it wasn't for lack of willingness on DeBerry's part. It was for lack of availability through the county to hold such a collection. And so in the event of that, if we put this in the code, we're having one event per year. Does staff have an idea of how they would host such an event if the county isn't available to host?
I'll answer that.
Oh, you wanna answer?
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think we need to qualify that particular statement in a number of different ways. I'm going to answer it a couple different ways. First, I think that statement, if you can go back to it here. Okay.
Holding at least one household hazardous waste collection event for cities per year.
Yeah, we probably need to qualify that, and that just hit me here, Mr. Bapp, was that the county does have a hazardous waste collection facility within 10 miles of the city. So I think we need to identify that even though the Volusia County has a hazardous waste collection facility within 10 miles of the city limits, the city will hold at least one hazardous waste collection event in cooperation with the county.
Okay. Yeah. we do.
And that will give us the leeway that just in case they don't want to do that, but it also identifies that there is a hazardous waste collection facility within 10 miles of the city limits.
Yep.
And it's in
Okay.
DeLand. If I may, add one more thing. On the solar panels, that's one of my favorite
I
subjects.
know you love it.
I think we need to take a look into banning solar panels over water. It seems to be becoming a trend that they're putting solar panels over lakes because they're running out of land. And I think that's a very hazardous condition. And I think we need to take a look at that to see if, for example, I know there's been maybe a comment that was made that over the FP&L reservoir, you can put 100,000, 200,000 solar panels on top of the reservoir.
Okay.
And some of these solar panel companies are now starting to put them over bodies of water. I made a presentation to council before I was a city manager that
I
solar panels
remember it.
have cadmium in it, and cadmium is a cancer-producing agent, and they leak and they go into soils. And that was one of the requirements we made with Duke, was to use panels that do not have cadmium in it. But I don't necessarily agree that solar panels need to be installed in lakes or rivers because we're running out of land.
Okay.
All right.
City Manager, do you believe that FPL would think that DeBerry's comprehensive plan applies to them as part of an energy-producing installation on something they already own?
I believe it would be part of as far as the land development code, they still have to follow the local land development
Okay.
codes. Yep.
All right, I know they've been grandfathered in, wink, wink,
Oh, sure.
on some other things.
Well, and there are,
Because they predate FDEP, for example.
and we've had some debates with them, obviously, and their plan is on agricultural property.
Yes.
Which provides them with some additional benefits in that as well. But I think we need to probably make a statement that solar panels are great on houses, solar panels are great on farms, but when you start putting them on top of lakes, that's an issue. And so I think we probably need to make a statement.
I would agree we could look at placement of solar panels on top of water bodies. My concern in bringing it up was more, I hope that we don't get too deep in the weeds, because houses are positioned in all sorts of directions. They have different kind of roof lines. We could get really in-depth with a lot of minutia that hasn't been needed to date, and might just be, in my view, a bit of overburdensome regulation where we'd have exemptions or exclusions coming before us that make perfect sense. The other question I had is I'm trying to envision this sustainable green team made up of staff. So the sustainable green team, what would you see this group of individuals, I assume out of growth management, doing?
Well, it would involve, like, the encouragement of, what are they, leads? I'm trying to think of the,
Lead standards in developing properties, because that's a separate thing in this presentation. Lead is a different bullet point. But if you're saying that the sustainable green team within growth management would be certain to have their antennas up and intervene on applications that come in where the pursuit of lead standards for the construction might be possible and desirable, I could see that.
right, and encouraging things like the green infrastructure and the green percolation of stormwater and,
Okay, I would actually like to see some of that. I mean, this goes back to when Matt Berger tried to get the junction to incorporate some, and I think he was unsuccessful. So if we had a greater encouragement in our comprehensive plan for things, and then we'd have to educate the public. This includes like swales with things growing in them because
Right, yeah.
they draw up water, and that means it's not manicured like you would see along the side of the golf courses.
correct.
So there would have to be a public education element. I'm not against us at all exploring those kinds of things. So I would see that's a positive. So those were just some of the random thoughts that I had
Okay.
to your presentation, and I certainly do appreciate the amount of work. I think you were well advised not to rush this element, which required expertise from outside consultants for each of these areas. I would agree with Councilmember Stevenson that we like to see when you know you don't have the equal in-house depth, using someone that does have it, particularly when we're setting policy, which the Land Comprehensive Plan does. Are there any other points or discussions? Hearing none, the workshop is adjourned.